Hi everyone, this is week 13 in English 101, College Composition. Here is your to-do list for the week. You have no readings, no textbook readings, nothing to watch. You do have some work to do though. Your multimodal project draft is due by Wednesday, so please post that online. And then as soon as you get that posted, you'll get 2 peer reviews to look at. And so please give those 2 projects your full attention and good, thorough feedback. I'll tell you, these are really fun to look at. It's fun to see what other people have done. And these aren't obviously just papers. These are projects that have, sound and video and so all kinds of things. So this time, what you're really looking for in the peer reviews is those elements, those visual elements, and how they get the message across to the target audience. So please take a look at those prompts before you dive into the peer reviews. Once we wrap up the multimodal project, our very last thing this semester will be the final portfolio. I've opened up all of the units for the rest of the semester so that you can get a good idea of what's due at the very end. And it is the final portfolio. So be sure you look at the instructions for that you have a real good sense of what you'll be doing for the portfolio. I'm not going to go over the instructions because they're right there on Canvas. But just in a nutshell, you will be taking 3 of the papers that you've written this semester. One of them will be your research paper, and then you have a choice of 2 of the others. You'll be revising those into a final draft, putting those all together with a cover letter and submitting those as your portfolio, and that will be that will be 50% of your grade. So be sure and let me know if you have any questions at all about the final portfolio. I wanted to take a little bit of time and go over some of the information that was in your textbook. This is located on pages 315 through 318, and it talks about the elements of design that are especially useful in multimodal composition. Now, these are used extensively in design, especially for user interface, and they go by the acronym CRAP, C-R-A-P. However, your textbook, I guess, was a little too delicate to put them in that order, so they kind of mixed them up. But that's a really good way to remember these. They are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And I'm just going to go over these briefly and then show you an example of how they all get pulled together. So contrast, I think you have a sense of what that means. It usually means things that are very different, and we're talking visually. Opposite, they offer a surprise, something kind of unexpected. They kind of wake up the brain a little bit. It's the most important visual technique to get people engaged and looking at what's on screen. And I know a lot of you have probably come across like really old websites that were put together at the very beginning of the internet, and they might have, a magenta background with yellow printing, and those are so hard to look at because back then people just didn't have a sense of how to put things together online in a way that made them easy to read and easy to understand. So the point of contrast, it makes things visually distinct. It makes them stand out, so they're basically easy to see. It emphasizes the important information, the things you want to really jump out, have people see first. It de-emphasizes the things that are of secondary importance. Some things that you can use to provide contrast would be size, small versus large, colors. Typically black and white offer the highest level of contrast, but things like blue and orange, green, yellow, and so on. Font. Okay, we could play with the size of font. We know that headings are always a larger size font than the body text. You could play around with styles too. So maybe a more decorative font in some situations and a more standard font in others. Line thickness, the spacing between elements, shapes, square versus round. Okay, so you get that idea. Repetition is also extremely important, and it means repeating elements. So when a viewer opens up a web page or any sort of visual artifact, the creator has a chance to essentially teach the viewer how to use this. And you do that by establishing repetition. It means always putting the navigation in exactly the same place. Maybe the upper left corner or the lower right corner. Using a consistent color palette so that every page, while not identical, follows, repeats colors, certain shapes, textures, spatial relationships, sizes, and so forth. So this helps organize the information visually, makes it easier to understand, creates a sense of unity and consistency. So people aren't wasting time looking for that button to, get back to the home page and so on. So repeated design elements can be titles, the layout, maybe the template that you use, color schemes, navigation buttons, and so on. Alignment means how do you line things up vertically and horizontally. Now, this does not mean that everything has to be exactly square, all right? You may choose to have a more casual or asymmetrical alignment if that meets the rhetorical needs of your audience and the message. However, typically it's easier to understand and see things if they are in pretty close vertical and horizontal alignment. So alignment lines things up, which connects things visually, which adds meaning, means these things are connected, lets the eye flow easily from one thing to the next. So every element should have some visual connection with another element. Creates a clean, clear, sophisticated look and feel. So you don't have just a jumble of stuff spread all over your screen. When you're thinking of alignment, think of lining up the margins, using lines, white space, any lines or arrows, that divide boxes of information. Alignment on the edges of text is really important. You only use centering for headings or titles. Okay? Do not center body text. It's actually more difficult for the eye to constantly be looking for that left margin to find the beginning of a line. So always align body text, like paragraphs, lined up straight on the left side. Well, this is, of course, different with some languages, but for English, we're talking about English, we read from left to right, so we want to line up that left side. And the last one is proximity, which means just putting things close together. So when things are close together on the screen, it automatically implies that they have some sort of connection in their meaning. So we have to be really careful what we put together. Elements that are related need to be grouped more closely together, and there needs to be a little bit of separation or space if things are different in meaning. So putting things in close proximity helps you organize your information logically, reduces clutter, and helps give your viewers some clues to help them understand what you're trying to convey. Here's just a random website I took a screenshot of, but it shows these design elements in action. So let's look at contrast. So right away, the designer chose a white background, which makes these colors really pop. So the red against the white, the blue against the white, the black against the white. that's an example of contrast. Repetition, we see three, those boxes with the photographs, exactly the same size, located in the same position above each column. So there's a repeating element. Right beneath that, we see some headings, which indicate these are three different companies, but it's repeated. So right away, I see all kinds of things repeated. And just in a millisecond, I can see how this information is organized. Alignment, we have three columns. There's actually a faint little line there, which encloses the box, which is one more clue that everything that's inside of that little line or box has to do with that company. And when we go outside that line, now we know that it has to do with a different company. Okay, and we see there's left aligned text. Those numbers are also aligned with the text. So really strong alignment there. And proximity. So the text in the paragraph is in close proximity to the name of the company, so we know that there's that connection there. The numbers, the data is in close proximity to the text. So all of that is packed together in one little unit, which tells the viewer all of that is connected. So a great example of all four visual elements. I'm not going to be having office hours from this point on, so make sure that you contact me either via the Canvas inbox or posting a question in the Ask the Instructor discussion forum if you have any questions at all about the multimodal project, the final portfolio, anything that you're doing to wrap up the rest of this semester. All right, well, you have your work cut out for you for the next 3 weeks, so good luck, and I'll talk to you later.